from the Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, God.
Some of his disciples were remarking about how the temple was adorned with beautiful stones and with gifts dedicated to God. But Jesus, as for what you see here, the time will come when not one stone will be left on another. Every one of them will be thrown down. Teacher, they asked, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign that they are about to take place? He replied, watch out that you are not deceived, for many will come in my name, claiming I am he, and the time is near. Do not follow them. When you hear of wars and uprisings, do not be frightened. These things must happen first, but the end will not come right away. Then he said to them, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, famine and pestilence in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven. But before this all, they will seize you and persecute you. They will hand you over to synagogues and put you in prison. And you will be brought before kings and governors, and all on account of my name, and so you will bear testimony to me. But make up your mind not to worry beforehand how you will defend yourself. I will give you words and wisdom that none of your adversaries will be able to resist or contradict. You will be betrayed even by parents, brothers and sisters, relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. Everyone will hate you because of me, but not a hair on your head will perish. Stand firm, and you will win life. When you see Jerusalem being surrounded by armies, you will know that its desolation is near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those in the city get out, and let those in the country not enter the city. For this is the time of punishment in fulfillment of all that has been written. It will be dreadful in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. There will be great distress in the land and the wrath against this people. They will fall by the sword and will be taken as prisoners to all the nations. Jerusalem will be trampled on by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. These are the words of our brother Jesus. Well, in our gospel today, we have the writings of Luke composed over 90 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus, and approximately 20 years after the second destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. It was in the winter of 69 in the Common Era that Titus led 48,000 troops into Jerusalem. By spring, the population of this city had surged with refugees and Passover pilgrims who were forced into the temple precinct. By midsummer, the rest of Jerusalem fell with tens of thousands enslaved or executed. And so Luke in his writings looks back at the suffering of the Hebrew people. He knew that when they saw Jerusalem surrounded by armies, its desolation was near. That they needed to let those who were in Judea flee to the mountains and those in the cities to get out, and those in the country to not enter the city. And how dreadful it was for pregnant women and nursing mothers. They would fall by the sword and be taken as prisoners to Jerusalem. would be trampled. Apocalyptic writing comes from apocalyptic thinking, from our trying to wrap our heads around unbelievable atrocities, like the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. We imagine what will happen if the war spreads to all of Europe and involves our troops, perhaps another world war, our sons and daughters. And the massacre of Israelis by Hamas that led to the destruction of Palestine and the genocide of her people. How will Palestine ever rebuild? We know that feeling, don't we? That the end of democracy, the end of our planet, the end of human existence is tenable. Like we could know and experience it in our lifetime, and if not in our lifetime, at least the lifetimes of the next generation or two. And so what do we do with this heightened anxiety? How do we prepare ourselves for this wailing and gnashing of teeth in this foreseeable future? I have a friend named Jim who I will always hold a sweet spot in my heart for. He was my first crush. We met on a youth retreat. He was 14 and I was just a few months older. Jim lived in Monticello, which is about 25 miles from here, and neither one of us could drive at the time. So we wrote letters. We ran to the mailbox each day after school before our parents got home. Occasionally I would stretch the phone. Sophia was then hooked to the wall. We had this long tangled cord that would go into my bedroom and we would have conversations. They were long distance calls back then, so my parents would eventually figure it out. When the weather was nice, Jim and I would ride our bikes, either to Monticello and back or the other way around, go to each other's homes and sit on the couch and nod our heads to Simon and Garfunkel, dolls. We rode our bikes home again. It was a beautifully innocent rite of passage for both of us. And then Jim moved to Buffalo. He became an electrician. He married a lovely woman named Ann, and they raised their children. He retired early with a nice pension. Life seemed good until a few months ago when he was diagnosed with metastatic esophageal cancer. Jim vowed to fight the cancer with everything left within him. This past week, he was hospitalized with double pneumonia. And on Tuesday of this week, he posted today's update. I got upgraded. I'm now in the ICU with intubation on the horizon if my oxygen levels keep dropping. I'm going to give it a good battle, though. Every moment of mine is concentrated on breathing. Friends, whether we are facing the end of civilization or the end of our lives, our brains react to the shock, and what we do next makes all the difference. Luke knew that. He lived through the destruction of Jerusalem. Jesus looked at those he loved and intuited what they would need to do as he prepared for his own torturous demise. We can fall into states of doom and despair, or we can lean into the arms of God, not as a form of surrender to what seems like an inevitable end, but as a formed partnership, as a pact to get through what is coming together. Jesus says, make up your mind not to worry beforehand how you will defend yourselves. For I will give you words and wisdom. You just stand firm and you will win life. Jeremiah promises that those who put their trust in God will be like trees planted in the streams whose roots go down to the water. They won't fear drought when it comes. And Paul reminds us that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future or any powers will be able to separate us from the love of God. And therein lies our hope. But sometimes it's easier said than done, isn't it? And leaning into God does not mean that we don't act. So what do we do? How do we find peace in the chaos? How do we survive? Well, Brian McLaren defines doom as more than a sense of a looming catastrophe. He says it's kind of a post-traumatic or pre-traumatic stress disorder that emerges when the old normal is collapsing, but the new normal has not yet appeared. So we don't know how to adapt to what is coming. Doom, he explains, is the emotional and intellectual experience shared by all who realize the dangerous future into which we are presently plunging ourselves, our descendants, and our fellow citizens, our fellow creatures. Or put more simply, doom is the feeling we have when we know our problems are way bigger than our solutions, and we feel that things will get quite a bit worse before they get better. We don't want it and we can't stop it. It's like watching a train wreck about to happen and seeing ourselves bracing for the impact. Do you feel that at times? I know I do. But Richard Rohr says that this is a necessary part of our growth as humans. He says, until we walk with despair and still have hope, we will not know that our hope was not just hope in ourselves and in our own success and our power to make a difference in our image of what perfection should be. Where do you find your hope? Rohr says we need hope from a much deeper source. We need hope larger than ourselves. He says, until we allow the crash and crush of our images of self, until we reckon with the fact that alone we are not enough, we will never discover the real life beyond what only seems like death. For death, says Rohr, is an imaginary loss of an imaginary self that is going to pass anyway. Sarah Kinzor is an anthropologist who studies authoritarianism. She's the co-host of Gaslit Nation, a weekly podcast which covers corruption in the United States and the rise of authoritarianism around the world. She sees the impact of turbulent times with a broader psychosocial lens, noting that people grow afraid and their fear is a kind of psychological energy, saying if we don't learn how to control the psychological energy of our own fear and resentment, we can be sure others will exploit our emotional energy for their own selfish and destructive projects. We've seen that happen. Our feelings of doom play right into the hands of those who are set on destroying all things that make us feel secure, all things that give us hope. It is as if that is the whole point, to make us fall into despair. She writes, you need to be your own light. Her words are echoed in the words of Jesus, who said, you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world, and the world needs light. When we find that light within us, it helps others. People remember that there is a light in the universe. Call it spirit, call it God, a light that can shine in and through them as well. And the darker the night, the brighter the light. Sarah suggests instead of going along with the crowd until collapse comes and then finding ourselves a part of a panicking, unprepared, easily manipulated majority, she says, do your inner work. Do it now. Welcome reality. Even a difficult reality, welcome it. Then, as we come to the place of accepting what we cannot control, we can open ourselves to insight. Like today with Jim, knowing that his only task is to focus on breathing. Tony Vick is a contributing writer to an Advent study called Keep Watch With Me. Tony Vick is serving 2 life sentences for murder. He writes, "In prison where I've been since 1996, the holidays are a depressing and lonely time. The penitential time of Advent punctuates the painful emotions associated with the sins that brought us here, the sins that separated us from our families and communities, and perhaps even from God. Not surprisingly, the suicide rate in prison climbs dramatically during the Christmas season. At my current prison," says Tony, "we are forming a community of inmates who want to live in peace. In this special unit, we dwell without fear of gang violence or of getting stabbed on the way to the shower. In this community, we are not relying solely on the state to provide hope. We are encouraging each other, teaching each other, loving each other, and living with each other in harmony. We are becoming light for one another. This change we want," says Tony, "begins with us. Small steps, small things to look forward to, small rays of hope. They allow us to simply hang on. Whether we are victims of war, piecing our lives together after a catastrophic loss, seeing our lives fade with a terminal illness, or seeing our lives thrown away as we are locked behind prison doors, our hope lies in God and in one another. For with God there are no ends, only beginnings. For the deaths which we face each day eventually lead to resurrections. And the lights we shine for one another remind us that in the end, goodness always triumphs." Friends, the presence of God is not something we earn, but something we live. Grace is given to us by grace and extended to others as we choose to love. Let us pray. Meet us here, O God of winter and waiting. O God who struggles with us and kindles our hope. Come in all your splendor and suffering. Comfort those who mourn. Let all who are crushed rise into the blooming of a new and better world. Teach us to channel our collective lament, longing, and love into a force that can raise the devastations and rebuild the ruined cities. Show us that darkness around us and within us is a door. It is soil and we are seed. Show us that we are your wick and your spirit is flame. Alone we flicker, but together we blaze. Amen.